Fink. I'm here live with Ted Schilowitz. It's This Week at XR. This Week in XR live at AWE 2022. And we're here with Shawn Frayne from Looking Glass. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again. Been a while.
Amazing to be back in the real.
Woo!
And you brought a spaceman with you.
I did, yes. Always got to bring props, you know.
Oh, you have them.
Yeah, so this is the Looking Glass portrait. World's best-selling personal holographic display. Folks can get them now. A lot of folks here at the show have built amazing stuff with them. Part of what we're sharing at the show is a way for folks who have already made holograms for physical holographic displays to share them to any device over the internet. So I can tell you more about that.
Sure.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
tell us about what is going on with a spatial display, because
Most of our listeners are actually audio only.
right there. So
Cool,
we'll
cool.
encourage them to go watch the video. He's brought a Looking Glass device with him.
I will
And he's
describe
playing
it.
some 3D content for us.
I'll paint a picture. So these are actually some Snapchat holograms that are showing on the Looking Glass. Bada bing, bada boom. And what's happening for those of you who are just tuning in through audio, there's a little display sitting next to me. It's 7.9 inches, and it is shooting out 100 different perspectives of the world simultaneously. So you can see three-dimensional content in a group of people without having to gear up. All of the holograms that are on this display, like this amazing little tree creature here, which was just on the Blender website that we pulled into the Looking Glass. This is created through some of our software tools that let you take anything in the universe of 3D, stuff you've made in Unity, Unreal, Blender, even portrait mode photos, and transform those into holographic media that until today have only been able to play in our physical holographic displays, but now those holograms can run in mobile devices, VR, AR, and our Looking Glass holographic displays and others in the future.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is totally self-contained, right? It's not connected to a computer or a phone or anything.
It's running off my cell phone battery, yeah.
So that's amazing. And it's a consumer device, right? Someone can go buy this.
That's right, $400
Where do you buy it?
For the small one.
for the small one,
Like,
yeah.
you have, tell us the product line here.
Sure. So we're the hologram company based in Brooklyn, New York, and there's about 50 of us in the team who work in all different facets of 3D, optics, electronics, 3D graphics, game development, you name it. And we have a hardware lineup of holographic displays that let groups of people without a VR AR headset see three-dimensional holograms. We have three sizes of the systems that are out there now. So the 7.9-inch Looking Glass portrait, then we have a 16-inch and a 32-inch landscape-oriented system. All of them run on the same software, and that's the second part of our companies. We make all of the software that turns the universe of trillions of pieces of 3D content into holographic media that can run on our devices, and now, as of the announcement this morning, at hologramsontheinternet.com, on anyone's devices.
And there's an optimal viewing device, or optimal viewing distance where the pixels converge, right? So it feels like it's seamless and looking good. You get a little
You can
too
check it
close
out.
to it.
Check it
You
out.
start to see the dots, but still pretty good from 4 feet to 3 feet away.
Yeah.
When you get to the bigger devices,
Yeah.
now we're at pretty exotic displays, right? 8K displays that you
Right.
can converge. So are you starting to explore that type of technology as well? Give us a sort of sense of the roadmap of where things might be headed for even higher fidelity.
Yeah, so the Looking Glass portrait is a great system for individual creators, and it's a kind of like holographic swatch,
Very low
if you
cost,
will.
works really well.
That's right.
But there's a more exotic.
So we have the larger scale systems, and those definitely, level up not only the dimension, but also the color depth, the contrast, the fidelity, and the overall amount of information that you're getting, because some of them use 4K and 8K displays.
When I see 8K displays, we're taking essentially 2 4K images. You
Right.
start to get to a fidelity level that's pretty impressive.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Have you seen some of our larger systems
I've
before?
seen a number of the different companies that are doing it. There's one of 3 or 4 companies that I know are really looking at 8K or higher.
Yeah.
Because anything lower than that is, you have to be sort of far away from it to really resolve it properly. But
Yeah.
8K, kind of any distance that you're comfortable with makes a really good looking image. And 8K
Absolutely.
displays aren't that expensive.
That's
They
right.
used to be hugely expensive, but now they're relatively cost-effective.
Yeah, and it's we're sort of riding that wave, both in terms of display density, but also in terms of compute power to process holographic content on the fly, and everyone that's making stuff in 3D now.
So how much do these things cost?
$400.
$400 for the portrait, and then for the big mama 32-inch.
That one's 20 grand.
And are people making content for Looking Glass now, and sort of selling it to other Looking Glass owners, or?
Yeah, they are. Folks don't need to make content specifically for Looking Glass though, because we
Any
have
3D content.
right. We have plugins into Unity, Unreal, Blender, you name it. And so folks drop in that plugin, and then basically
They run it right off their desktop.
That's right. Or they can export a holographic image, a holographic render, or a holographic rendered movie, and then share those with other people. So that's happening a lot.
And is there, within this device or the more exotic devices, an interactive component where you can actually drag the object around the 3D image or 3D capture around?
So the entire system's all real time based. So you can. So the nerdiest way to put this is the entire light field updates at 60 frames a second. So that means you could have a controller from a headset or an ultra leap motion controller, whatever, and be able to interact live with the holographic content.
Where do you think this technology is in 5 years, Shawn, or even 10?
Yeah.
Is this the future of television, do you think?
It's ubiquitous. It's not only the hardware, which we think we make the best system, the best display to display holograms, because groups of people can view them. It's viscerally three-dimensional, and so that's going to weave its way through our lives. Big systems, small systems in our homes. Like there'll be, Amazon Alexas that are holographic systems in the future. There'll be televisions, other displays that are showing three-dimensional content in our homes, schools, hospitals, but also the holographic media itself that people are starting to share in our community. And with what folks can sign up for today on Holograms on the internet, this pilot program to share those holograms across the internet with anybody, we think it's going to be as big as the shift from photograph to film or radio to television.
Let's just be clear. Today you launched Holograms
On the internet.
on the internet.
That's right.
That's holograms on the
.com.
internet.com.
That's right.
And when I go to this website, my phone is being used right now, so I can't run over there and take a look at it.
I
So
like the fact that you go with the old school moniker of the internet. As opposed
I know,
to
the M word.
new
Don't
school
say it.
moniker of
Don't
the
say
M
it.
word.
It's like we've got a guest
know
who
the
hasn't said it.
internet.
I think this is the second guest in a row who has not used the M word.
I'm trying not to. It was a personal challenge. So this hologram that you see here on the Looking Glass portrait is also now shareable directly on the internet.
Yeah.
So this is a
For
rendered
those
out.
of you listening to audio only, Shawn is showing us the exact
And you're
same
just on a
thing.
browser. You're not
Just on a
that.
browser.
Just on his mobile browser on his smartphone.
And I can embed this hologram by clicking this embed link on anywhere. Wikipedia, New York Times, my own website, anywhere that the internet exists. And I can view this not only on my phone, not only on desktop. If I have my Looking Glass connected to my computer, this hologram pops up three-dimensionally in my Looking Glass. And if I go to that same link or anywhere that hologram's embedded on the internet in a VR headset or AR headset, it's there holographically, three-dimensional, like a hole punched in the browser itself.
So is the business rationale for doing the holograms on the internet.com to promote Looking Glass, or is there another business strategy at hand?
So our goal is to get 3D creators the widest possible audience. And so some people have looking glasses, but a lot of folks don't. So we want them to be able to enjoy holograms that 3D creators are
So
making
you're
as
giving
well.
them a virtual Looking Glass, so to speak, until they can buy a real one.
I mean, there's a lot. Folks have a lot of different devices. 11 million Quest 2 headsets. A billion phones that can take portrait mode photos. and tens of thousands of these looking glasses. So to get our 3D creators in our community and the tens of millions of other 3D creators and beyond, the billion people who have a portrait mode capable phone that can take 3D holographic photos, to get them the widest possible audience, we can't just have holograms only viewable on looking glasses hardware, even though we think that's the best way to view them.
It sounds obvious when you say it. So I appreciate you taking the time to come see. It's great to see you.
Yeah,
in the real.
likewise.
And,
very high fidelity.
Yeah, exactly. And,
Almost holographic.
Yeah, almost holographic.
Continued success and growth to Looking Glass.
Thank you.
It's always exciting to see what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
We're here with Ashley Crowder. Ashley is an old friend from the industry, which of course is one of the great things about AWE. We all feel like we're having a reunion in addition to trying to get some business done with one another. Ashley, welcome and thanks for making time for us.
Thanks so much for having me. So yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Vntana. We're a 3D commerce platform, so we make it incredibly easy to take existing manufacturing design files and instantly optimize them so they're ready to share on your e-commerce site, B2B sales, social media, or game engines. And we work with lots of fashion clients like VF Corp, I spoke with today here, which was fun, Diesel, Hugo Boss, and others.
Let me understand just a little bit about how 3D is coming to the internet.
Yeah.
We see from time to time, I think on Amazon and other e-commerce sites, you can mouse and turn things around and exploit them as, you know, the traditional method, of course, is that there's a bunch of thumbnails and you click on the thumbnails and then that's the way you see different angles or close-ups. So that's the way things are changing, right? We're moving away from those little thumbnails and moving toward more of a complete view of a product.
Exactly. So instead of flat 2D images or videos, the internet is now spatial. So we can have an actual 3D model where you can not only turn 360, but see every single angle. And with the clients we work with, many people design in 3D now for manufacturing. So like AutoCAD and similar programs, because it gives the manufacturers such a better understanding of the product. The problem with those models is they're way too big and not in the right format for web or game engines. And that's where Vntana comes in. So we wrote patented optimization algorithms. It's basically smart 3D compression. So instead of a 3D artist having to sit there and manually fix these files for these different end use cases, our software does it for you. So it makes them interoperable.
So is it CAD that you need, or can you basically take any kind of junk that they give you and...
Not any junk. We've seen a lot of junk. But we work with specific design programs. So for apparel, it's Clo and Browseware. Those are the two main ones. For footwear, it's Keyshot and Moto. For furniture, it tends to be 3ds Max and Maya. So we can work with any of those types of programs.
And because you're working with large commercial clients that have retail output and wide ubiquitous deliverables, you're largely looking at display devices at scale, right? Smartphones, computers, laptops, tablets. But are you also seeing client demand, or are you preparing for this sort of next wave of devices, these spatial devices that give 3D a chance to really help? I'm just curious.
Both, yeah. So when we work with an enterprise like Hugo Boss, they launch 40,000 products a year. Like, we're talking about massive scale. So they have to have some automation software like us. And we're helping them set up their 3D strategy for scale. So they start using, actually they're using some game engines for creating virtual B2B showrooms to sell to Nordstrom's and Saks, because people still can't get samples right now because logistics are a nightmare, right? And then you can also, we automatically create a 3D web viewer you can embed on your website. And then, super excited about Fortnite opening up so anybody can publish now. And so every single fashion brand should be thinking about, how do I sell digital assets in Fortnite and Roblox and these other games. So we prep and convert and optimize the asset for any of these end use cases so that they're actually ready, versus having to rebuild something from scratch for each project that they're doing.
We've seen some pretty robust announcements around that. Nike and Adidas did very large launch. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about your those. If you are.
No, but what I can talk about is we did a big announcement with Meta recently. So Meta has now enabled 3D and AR ads. It's not available to everyone yet. So they have Spark AR where you can go and build a custom AR lens, but now with our partnership between Meta and Vntana, you can instantly publish 3D and AR ads at scale. So it's all automated. So a social media manager can get on and do it versus needing a 3D artist and developers. So super excited about partnerships we're continuing to build like that to make this easy for people because there aren't enough developers or 3D artists out there.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because it sort of dovetails into my next question about. Tell us about the size of your company, structure of the company, and I presume you're looking for smart people that can do this kind of work, right? And it's hard to find developers with the competitive landscape that's out there.
Yeah, always looking for smart people. That's for sure. We are 25 full-time right now, mostly engineers. Mostly from the game engine space. But
Are you in New York or are you here in California?
I'm based in Los Angeles, but since COVID, we've gone totally distributed. So we have people across the U.S. as well as Europe. So,
do you find any challenges with that, or has it actually been kind of wonderful for a digital green company? We feel a lot of companies have leaned into this and find amazing success, allowing workers to have a lot of flexibility, creative sort of choices in their work life and home life.
Yeah.
And actually productivity's gone up, not down.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked for us. And look, I don't think it works for every type of person, right? Some people prefer an office and work better that way, but it's worked really well for us. And, we got to drink our own Kool-Aid. We meet in VR on Thursday mornings and, feel like we're together. So, I think, the culture of our company is very gamer and techie and it works for us.
So you're using Horizon Workrooms to meet, or how do you meet?
So I love VR chat because it's weird and fun. A lot of the team loves Rec Room because they like to play Capture the Flag. Yeah, we play Capture the Flag. We like it's for like a fun team building, exercise. I can only do so many Zoom happy hours. Yeah. So.
No, I do a lot of stuff with my students in VR chat.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of goofy. Somebody's a spoon.
Yeah.
Another person is an alien.
It's so fun.
The person standing next to them is a giant horse.
Yeah.
Just really kind of random.
Yeah.
That's what you can't easily do in the real world. That's what you lean into.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, meeting in VR has kind of just a fun thing built into it. And of course, it's so much easier today than it used to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, an Oculus is $300. It's less than your iPhone,
So for your clients, what is the biggest point of friction?
Honestly, right now, I think it's education and training. So, we work with a lot of fashion companies. So we're working with fashion designers who now happen to be trying to learn 3D tools. They're not 3D artists. And so,
That's right. They're used to those beautiful, impressionistic
sketches.
2D drawings.
And I mean, it really depends. And
texture,
fabric. And so I think there's companies are at all different stages. What's interesting is I think luxury has been the slowest to adopt, whereas companies with high volume have just had to because that scale again you need tech to help. But the education is key. So we do monthly webinars on training for 3D, and tons of designers come to that. And we're always looking to partner with more 3D design programs to do that because I think the more people understand, the easier it gets for everybody. So
well, we saw that transition with the automotive world, where they were holding back because they felt like they needed to create in clay. Design is in clay and shavings and constantly. But then there was a tipping point where it got better and better, the 3D tools, and now most automotive companies are fully leaned into 3D, and they still use clay as kind of a vestige of there's an artistic soul to seeing something built out in a physical way. But they're leaning into 3D printing, they're leaning into 3D tools, they're leaning into the kind of technology you bring to the table.
And you're never going to get totally rid of it. Like, right, if I'm, Wolverine Worldwide's client, they're designing a hiking boot, they're going to go test that hiking boot in the mountains and everything. But if you can get rid of even half of your physical samples, you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're increasing your speed to market, and you're saving carbon footprint, which is also a real cost in Europe for carbon credits. So
and you're able to iterate faster.
way faster.
Look at it, change it, get feedback, change it again, and then go ahead and build your physical once you've got to a point where
Exactly.
everybody's bought in on it. That's the value companies like yours are doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is the metaverse hype helping or hurting your mission?
Oh, I think it's totally helping. So thank you, Zuckerberg, for that talk. I know people are annoyed at the word; it's everywhere, but honestly, it has changed the conversation. So executives at companies have said we need a 3D strategy, we need a metaverse strategy, right? So I think it's helped a lot.
Well, I can help you with
Yeah.
that metaverse strategy.
We can help. We are happy to help build your 3D workflow and make it easy for you and automate it. So
Ashley, thanks for making time for us today. I've been following the development of your company for years,
Yeah.
from New York in 2017.
Mhm.
So it's great to see what you've grown it into.
Very
Congratulations.
exciting.
yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Avi, good to see you.
Hi.
This is Ted Shilowitz reporting from our weekly podcast, This Week in XR. And you have some very interesting things to talk about in your world, what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, the group that you work for, and what inspires you right now.
Sure. I have about 30 years in XR at this point, a little over 30 years. Starting on the VR side of it, all the things everybody's saying about the metaverse today, that was me 30 years ago. And so I understand everybody's excitement and where they want to go. But that was also 30 years ago. So I've done a lot of stuff since then. And since then, for the last 12 years or so, I was embedded inside multiple major companies, helping them figure out the future. Some of them I can't talk about, but let's just say figure out the future of where they want to go. At Microsoft, it resulted in the HoloLens. I was one of the first people, I was the first technical person working on the HoloLens. At Amazon, I helped to craft what's called the Echo frames now. We didn't have a name back then. And I spent 3 years at Apple, and I can't talk about anything about that. So I have a strong interest in trying to help the field. I wanted to get into the field initially because I wanted to tell stories and make things just like everybody else. And then I figured out it's going to take another however many years to build all the stuff that we need to build. So I got busy building stuff. I'd still like to get back to making storytelling that I was excited about. Lately, I've left Apple. And so I left in 2019 and I've gone back to being independent and consulting and have many companies that I advise, like Campfire, Tilt5, a bunch of other really fun companies that I help out. Do my own thing as well, doing a lot of writing, so I have a long list of Medium articles that I've put out there. And the latest thing is we're starting this group called the XR Guild. And the purpose of the group was we identified something that seemed to be missing from the field. Doctors have a Hippocratic Oath.
Right.
We don't. We don't have a sense of what is a common set of ethics and principles in this field. And so we went about trying to think about how do we make that happen. And so rather than try to focus on policy or trying to change the minds of various CEOs, we just said it's just way easier. Just appeal to the developers who are just like us, people who are makers in the field, and talk about ethics. So we just want to have a conversation about what does it mean, how do we promote ethical thinking, and so we're launching that XR Guild today at AWE, and we want to invite everybody in the field to come check it out and hopefully join us.
That's great. Well, I couldn't think of a better ambassador of someone who has been in the trenches for as long as you have. You and I share a lot of commonality of the things we can't talk about, things that we've been working on for many years in the background with the different companies that we're involved in. And it sounds like you've had a really interesting career driving the future, right? And sort of looking at where things go that haven't really come to fruition for many years after you started to foresee them. So maybe go through some of those key markers, key things that you saw that maybe still aren't fully here today, that you're waiting for full iteration to hit.
Sure. I think the key is that you got to make a lot of the mistakes as you go along. We don't do a good enough job learning from other people's mistakes. We often have to learn from the mistakes we have to make ourselves, which is a waste sometimes. But that's life. I think that the mistakes I made early on were thinking that the metaverse, which was just coined 30 years ago, was going to happen overnight. That we were all of a sudden going to have this 3D world that we all join. And 30 years later, I'm not so sure. Like I think I've learned a lot of the problems along the way, with the way that we conceptualize it and the way that we're going about building these things. And so that's why I'm focusing on the things that I'm focusing on. It's all about having made various mistakes, how can we correct them and how can we stop making the same mistakes? We should be making all new mistakes, all brand new ones, not making the same ones that we've made for 30 years, right? That's my philosophy. And so working on all these projects, my role has always been as experienced prototyper. So my title at Apple, for example, was the lead of experience prototyping. And so my job was to try to build things as best we could with whatever we had and see how they were, see what works, see what doesn't work, and make decisions about what is possible based on the evidence of how good is it if we actually were to achieve this. I wish more people would do that, spend the time building the things to learn, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Maybe let's not do A, we'll do B or C instead. And it's a really valuable process, worth every penny.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the economic impulses of companies that don't have the wherewithal of an Apple or a Microsoft or a Google, they're forced into just making those decisions without the iteration process, without the constant sort of viewing through the lens of a consumer and knowing what might work, what definitely won't work, right? And you only come to that in time with lots of testing and lots of resources. So it sounds like you've got pretty strong insights around that as you can bring them to other younger companies, startup companies, and your own writings now. That you're talking about.
Exactly. So while I can't talk about anything I might have done in secret,
right,
the lessons learned are common lessons that everybody will discover if only they do the same experiments that we do. So we can often talk about the experiments and the lessons learned without revealing any sort of plans that any companies might have.
So I think you would be a great person to talk about the forward press of the wearable revolution that still is yet to come. As we migrate from a smartphone platform, fully ubiquitous, fully with us all the time, always on, and has so much utility and entertainment value, into something that the form factor will change, and we're starting to see massive amounts of dollars being spent by independent companies well-funded like Magic Leap, as well as Microsoft with their HoloLens, maybe whatever Apple might be coming up with in the near or far-away future, what Qualcomm is doing with the underpinnings of all that from a technological standpoint. Where do you think we stand in this XR journey to move past the smartphone, in terms of your opinion on that?
So whenever that name is mentioned, I always have to preface my answer with, I am not addressing anything related to that company and can neither confirm nor deny anything in my answer.
Sounds very familiar.
So that's my standard answer. But as for the overall question, I think a lot of people understand the idea that these devices are converging, all these things are coming together. We may never have one device. That may not be practical. We have phones and laptops. They have different purposes, right? Different form factors that are optimized. But the technologies are certainly useful. When you can put the same chips in both, that's a big advantage, right? And you can reduce the cost of everything by doing it together. I think I'll share the one thing I don't think people are saying enough, because I don't want to just repeat what everybody else has. But I think that the biggest change that we're going to see that isn't talked about is the fact that we are going to become the firewalls of the future. Today we have a firewall in our home that protects our home from forces on the internet. But in the future, the glasses are going to be the firewall. It's effectively our boundary with the world. And we can consider everything outside of that as potentially hostile and that we don't control, untrusted, but everything that comes through that barrier needs to be something that we're willing to accept coming in. But the inverse is almost more important. We're not going to be leaking the information out that we do today. We're just a sieve today. But in the future, that firewall will protect our private information from getting out. And that's the best part. When people talk about Web3, the best part of it to me is the self-sovereign identity part, because it inverts the privacy equation and says the company has to ask for something they want, and they're going to get it in a form that they can only use it very narrowly within our constraints, within our grant of permission. And that means they're not going to be able to build those databases about us. And if they do, we're going to poison those databases. So the database lives with us. And the glasses become the filter for what do we want to get from the world? What do we need to see? And it becomes much less of a common reality and much more of a consensual reality. It's just good and bad. We could have the filter bubble problem potentially because it's consensual. We may not see things that we don't want to see. But it's also much more pleasant and it's much more tolerable, more so than we've dealt with before. And so we will also have to deal with the issue of how do we gently expose people to things that they need to see that they may not want to see.
So it sounds like you're pretty bullish on Web3, the technical underpinnings of what we commonly now nomenclature call the Metaverse, that allow more autonomy, more decentralization, a different form of transactional logic tied to the blockchain in many ways. It sounds like you're a protagonist in that world.
I think I'd call myself open-minded. I would say I'm not happy with almost any implementation of a blockchain thus far. I read the white papers, and I said, no, I'm not putting my money in that. I don't think it's a safe investment. That's my personal philosophy. It's not investment advice, but I really was not willing to bet on it. And in some ways, I wish I had just put $1,000 into Bitcoin way back when I started tracking it. I could do whatever I want today.
Said no,
my ethics actually said no because it was going to melt the planet. That was very clear from the white paper that was the end result. So didn't want to do that. And I also have a problem with any blockchain that is designed that is essentially deflationary, where there's a fixed number of coins. It is always going to lead to plutocracy. By definition, you can prove it mathematically that everybody exchanges value, but the people who have more money will win more often more of the bets because they can afford to risk more.
The speculative nature of the
Exactly.
Of the device.
It just results in plutocracy. It does not result in decentralization. It results in re-centralization. So you need a much more intelligent design for what we call Web3 than what we see today. There's only a few things I like, and even those have their problems. I love the idea of WorldCoin in principle, that we can finally come up with a safe, unique ID for everybody to prove that you're human. The implementation leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of criticism about how they've gone about doing it.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot to talk about. Charlie and I should have you again on the longer podcast to walk through a lot of these things because you are indeed one of the rare thought leaders in this world. So Avi, as we wrap up this little mini This Week in XR podcast, tell us how people find you on Medium and other places they can read about your thinkings and your musings and other ways they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find. I think I'm the only Avi Bar Zeev on the internet as far as I can tell. So just put my whole name together, Avi Bar Zeev. That's my Twitter handle. That's my Medium handle. That's the same thing everywhere. So
Perfect.
super easy.
Your writings are really interesting, and I encourage people to dive in. So this is This Week in XR, reporting from AWE with myself, Ted Shulowitz, and my partner in crime, Charlie Frayne.
Thank you.
Thank you.